Hey, Colin. No need to turn your camera on or anything, and you can leave your mic off unless you've got a question. But we'll wait for everybody to get on. You're the first person, obviously. And I am recording this, guys, just so you know. I'm gonna put it on. There's a couple people that aren't gonna be able to make it tonight, so I'm gonna record this and I'll put it on YouTube. And if you just search my name, you could find pretty much every ground of that, every class that we've done actually is on YouTube. Why am I doing that? So if you ever want to study extra or want to like listen to what we've gone over, you can find it, or you can wa go to my old account and watch my hockey highlights. But so we have this is about half the classes, and then there's a couple. I did a couple lectures on chapters from the P-hack and put these up here. I did that with some people from the last round. So I think I have every other class recorded too, maybe just not published. So if you want one of the other classes, you can text me and I can throw it up there. But right now we're just waiting. I think we just need Doug. And like I was telling Colin there, you guys don't need to have your cameras or mics on or anything. If you do have a question, you can just turn your mic on or you can throw it in the chat and I'll get to it when I see it. Didn't mean to do that. But Doug is has not taken this quiz yet, so we can go over the quiz before he joins. He won't be missing anything. So, um, stop me if you've got a question on any of these guys. But this is the answer key for last week's quiz. We will go ahead and look over. If anybody has questions, we'll look over the charts and how we calculated some of these answers. But number one, which items are included in the empty weight of the aircraft? The answer is going to be A, guys. Unusable fuel and undrainable oil are included. Okay. Um, B and C, well, C is just not correct. They don't count full fuel. B is technically correct, but the most correct answer is A. Okay, so it's all this stuff and A. Uh, if B was going to be the right answer, it would have to include unusable fuel and undrainable oil. Okay, two, an aircraft is loaded 110 pounds over max certified gross weight. If fuel, gasoline is drained to bring the aircraft within limits, how much fuel should be drained? It's 18.4 gallons. Remember, guys, each gallon is 6 pounds. So the math you got to do is 110 divided by 6 should give you 18.4. Number three, what is the maximum amount of baggage that can be carried when the airplane is loaded as follows? So it gives you three numbers, front, rear, and fuel. You need to add those up. Remember, your fuel, you need to multiply this by 6 pounds to get, or six, yeah, 6 pounds to get your pounds there. The answer for this one is going to be A. Okay. Refer to figure 32 and 33. Calculate the weight and balance and determine if the CG and the weight of the airplane are within limits. Uh, The answer for this one is B, 83.4 and within limits. Let's look at chart the supplement 32 and 33 just for a second. So is that the others are the right figures? So if you guys wanted to find this, um, you can actually find all of this is the supplement that you will be given on the private pilot written. So it's what you'll have when you go in there to take the test. You can literally just look up private pilot written supplement. And you can go to this link from the FAA, scroll down, Airman Knowledge Testing Supplement for Sport Pilot, Recreational Pilot, Remote Pilot, Private Pilot. So this is what you will have with you on the test. This is where the figures for your questions will come from. But 32, 33. So what we had to do on this question, right, is come and you look at the chart to find, for example, we'll do usable fuel, and it'll give you the amount of gallons and what that's equal to in the weight, and then what that's equal to in the moment, remember, divided by 100. So when you go to do the CG, when you go to do moment over weight, your total moment over total weight, you have to multiply all your moment numbers by 100 before you do that, or else you won't get the right answer. Okay. Um, And then this right here, this is just another way of telling you the limits. It gives you your weight and then your minimum moment and your maximum moment. Okay, it's just a chart representation of this, or a numbers representation of this chart right here. All right, number five. I'm sorry. Yeah, number five. What is the maximum amount of baggage that may be loaded aboard the airplane for the CG to remain within the moment envelope? Okay. So once again, you're going to go to figure 34. You're going to find these moments by putting in uh, the weight and going to the moment. It'll just give you straight up the moment. Then you need to do that calculation, and you'll get the answer 105 pounds. Okay. Um, what you can do on these is plug and chug. So you can just do all the work and then put 105 in for the baggage and see what happens. Do all the work and then put 110 in and see what happens. And do all the work and see 120. One word of advice when you see these questions on the written is if you are going to do the plug and chug, which is what I always did, always start with B because it always goes from the lowest number to the highest number. So if you plug and chug and B is the correct answer, then you just guessed right, right? You started with the right one. But if you plug and chug and B is too heavy, you know A is the right answer. If you plug and chug and B is not heavy enough, then C is the right answer. You don't have to do any more work. Okay. Number six, refer to figure eight. What is the effect of a temperature increase from 25 degrees to 50 degrees if density altitude remains at 5,000 feet? The answer is C. 1650 foot increase. Um, Number 7, figure 40, determine the approximate ground roll distance required to take off. And the answer for this is A, 650. 35, what fuel flow should a pilot expect at 11,000 feet on a standard day with 65% max continuous? The answer is B. So this is just the chart, right? You're just going to 11,000 feet, going over to standard temperature, and you'll find your fuel flow. Number 9, determine the total distance required to land. This one is 1,400. Number 10, determine the total distance required to land over a 50-foot obstacle. This one is 1,004. Number 11, what is the crosswind component for landing on runway 18 if the tower reports the wind is 220 at 30 knots? So remember, we're going to use that chart here. Somebody got a question? Somebody speaking up? No? Okay. Um, Remember, we're going to use the chart here for this. How did that happen? Okay. And so runway 18 is 180, and the wind is from 220, so that's 40 degrees off. So you have a 40-degree crosswind at 30 knots. So when you look at the chart here, so you go down, you find the 40 line, you follow this line in until you get to the 30-knot arc. So 40, 30 knots, and then you'll go straight down from there, and it's 19. Okay. Um, 12. Figure 28, illustration 4. The VOR receiver has the indication shown. What's the aircraft's position relative to the station? This one is north. 13. Figure 28, illustration 7. The VOR receiver has the indication shown. What is the aircraft's position relative to the station? That one is B, southeast. 14, we did not talk about last week, but how many GPS satellites are required to yield a three-dimensional position and time solution? So this one is 4. Okay, so it needs 4 GPSs to pinpoint your location, latitude, longitude, and altitude. It needs 5 for you to actually use GPS because the 5th satellite works as a not a failsafe, but it checks the other satellites to make sure everything is correct. Everything's reading correctly. And then 15, upon landing, the front passenger, 180 pounds, departs from the airplane. A rear passenger, 204 pounds, moves to the front passenger position. What effect does this have on the CG if the airplane weighed 2690 pounds and the moment divided by 100 was 2260 just prior to the transfer? The answer is the CG moves forward approximately 3 inches. So you have a few options to get the answer to this question. You can do the weight and balance. Um, well, actually, you can't. You don't have enough information. So you have 2 options. You can do the weight movement formula, which is something that you have to memorize. They do not give you this for the written. Um, like they don't give you the formula for the written. You would use this right here, this formula. Weight removed over new total weight. Over here you have the change in CG and the distance between the weight and the old CG. So you would use that. The variable you don't have is the change in CG, so that would be X. You cross multiply and divide here. But for this question specifically, you know with the way that the answers are that the CG has to move forward, right? So B is automatically not the right answer. Because in this scenario, you've taken weight from the back and moved it forward. So now not only do you not have any weight in the back, you don't have that passenger in the back anymore, but you've increased the amount of weight you have in the front. So you know that the CG is going to move forward. So it can't be B. Um, then you're kind of guessing between C and A. Well, if you take 204 pounds from the back, remember when we talked about moment and how it's related to arm and it's a measure of leverage? And now if you have like 10 pounds, 100 feet from your fulcrum or from your datum, that 10 pounds, 100 feet from it is the same as um, 1,000 pounds at 10 feet from it, right? Because of the way that arm works, you should be able to deduce that A, the CG moves forward approximately 3 inches is the right answer. Okay, you might get one question like this on your written. It's not entirely common. It's not uncommon to not have a single weight move formula on your written. So, does anybody have any questions about any of these? We can go over them right now.
Max,
Yep,
can you hear me?
I got you, Doug. Loud and clear.
All right, all right. Just curious. I just wanted to see if this thing's working here. So I got you on an iPad.
Okay,
So
can you see the screen and everything too?
yeah, I can see right now the quiz things. I can see those right
Yep, that's what we're looking at.
now.
Um,
Okay,
at the end of class, Doug, I'm gonna send you the quiz. I typed it up and I've got all the forms for you. So I'll
okay,
I'll email it to you.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay, guys. So today what we're gonna do, well, first off, thanks for meeting on Zoom. It was gonna be easier for me. I had to do some stuff and then I didn't exactly want to drive an hour down to the airport. So today we're doing regulations, which is pretty straightforward, guys. That's why it's easy to do this one on Zoom because I'm not gonna have to draw anything on the board or anything for you. Um, but what you guys are gonna need for not for the written necessarily, because you don't use this on the written, but for your check ride, certainly you need a FAR aim. Okay, and if you have your FAR aim right now, you can go ahead and get it out. Um, you want to have at this point you should get the 2026 one, unless you think you're going to take your check ride before the year changes. So if you don't think you're going to take your check ride before the end of the year, get the 2026 FAR aim. This one from Sporties is nice because they will send tabs, reference tabs for you. With it, you'll have to tab it yourself, but they send the tabs for you. Why that's nice is because, like I've said a few times, when you're on the check ride, you can, when they ask you a question during the oral, if you don't know the answer, you can find the answer. You can look it up. And a lot of times you will have that tabbed in your FAR aim. So it saves you time, right? If they ask you what the required equipment is for the airplane and you don't remember, you can go to 91-175, which will be tabbed here. It'll say required equipment on these tabs, and you'll go right to it. You can buy your own tabs. I try to do that, but my handwriting is too bad, so I couldn't read them. So I would recommend getting this one from Sporties. Um, So today, while we go over the regulations, if you have your FAR aim with you, I would recommend going through it and highlighting, or if you have tabs, tabbing um, all the regulations that we go through. If not, you can just take regular notes for any of these. Okay. Um, so we're gonna start, guys. I just want to talk about the actual book, the FAR aim, for a second. Um, the FAR aim is split into two separate books, basically. It's the FAR and then the AIM. And the FAR is the federal regulations. Okay. So what you're going to find in the FAR are the rules and the laws. Okay. Everything that's in the FAR part of the book are regulations, they're federal law. Everything that's in the AIM stands for Aeronautical Information Manual. And what the AIM consists of is um, just information that is helpful to uh, aviation. Okay. It's going to be information about weather, information about flight services, information about flight and navigation equipment. Um, so the AIM has a lot of good information in it, but it is not where you go to figure out the law. A lot of it is like best practices. Like it in the AIM, it will prescribe how they want you to depart the pattern and how they want you to enter the pattern. But the specifics, like it says that they prefer that you depart the pattern on a straight out or a 45-degree downwind departure. And that's not legally binding, but it's their recommended procedure. That's what you're going to find in the AIM. Okay. It's good to crack open the AIM and read it every once in a while. You'll remember when we went over the weather products, in the AIM is where you're going to find your keys for the weather shorthand. So, like if you don't know what something means in a METAR or a TAF or a PIREP, the AIM is where you'll find the key for that. It'll tell you what it is. Okay. Um, the FAR, though, is broken up into different parts, is what they're called. Um, and they don't go, there's not, we're going to talk about part 61 today. There's not 60 parts in front of it. For some reason, they just hop around. So there's like a part one, part three, part 21, part 27. It hops around. Okay. Um, part 61, though, um, is one of two parts that we are mainly concerned of. Part 61 and part 91. Part 61, what you need to know, what you need to remember, is that Part 61 deals with certification of airmen. Okay, so anything that is going to be involved with getting your certificate, how you get the certificate, what you need to do to get the certificate, um, what you can do that can get the certificate taken away, that is Part 61. Okay, Part 91 is all about just the general rules, like the laws of the road, as you might think of them. Okay. So part 61, if you get a question that's like how many um, if you have a question just for yourself or your CFI that says how many hours of night do I need to get my private, you'll go to part 61 and that's where you'll find the answer. Okay. So we'll start off in the first regulation that they want you to know, 6115, offenses involving alcohol or drugs. So if you have a conviction of a violation of any federal or state statute related to growing, processing, etc., of narcotics or any illegal drug, it is grounds for denial of certificate or revocation of certificate. Um, guys, we live in Ohio. Uh, weed is legal in Ohio on a state level, but it's still federally illegal. So the FAA is a federal entity. Anything to do with weed, any issues that you may get into regarding that is going to be a problem. It is not legal for you as a pilot, basically. Um, and you'll remember when you get your medical certificate, they ask you if you have used marijuana in the last 2 years. So you're not supposed to be using it either. If you answer that question and you say yes, you're going to get denied your medical. So, all right, moving on. 61.3, guys. So this is your required documents on person. So this is what you are required to have with you when you go and fly and act as PIC. Okay. You need to have your private pilot certificate, you need to have your medical certificate, and you need to have your photo ID. Okay. PMP is how some people remember it. If you are a student pilot, you need to have your logbook with its endorsements. Okay. But when you are a private pilot, you just need your certificate, medical certificate, and your photo ID. The photo ID has to be a government issue photo ID. It cannot be like an Ohio State Buck ID or something like that. It has to be like your driver's license, your passport, your military identification card. Those are the three that I can think of. But these are the required documents that you need to have to go fly. If you don't have one of those, you can't act as a required crew member. Okay, moving on. Type rating, 6131. Type rating requirements. So a type rating is required for an aircraft that meets one of the following uh, criteria. If it has a max takeoff weight over 12,500 pounds, if it is a turbojet, that's the word that they use in the FAR, but turbojet basically if it has a jet engine. So um, that also includes turboprops. Okay. or if the FAA requires it. So there are some aircraft that are so technically uh, technically challenging that the FAA may require you to get a type rating for it, even though it doesn't meet the first two bullets. And what a type rating is, guys, is it's basically an addition onto your license to allow you to fly a specific aircraft. So, like on my ATP, I have a type rating for the Phenom. The Phenom is the only jet that I am type rated to fly. I can't go and fly a 737 because that requires a type rating, uh, a specific type rating. Okay, guys, moving on. 6123, medical certificate durations. Okay, so we've gone over this. We'll go over it again. Um, First class, guys. If you are 40 or older, first class is good for 6 calendar months. If you are under 40, first class is good for 12 calendar months. First class medicals are needed to for ATP operations. Okay, that's it. Second class medicals are required for commercial operations, and they're good for 12 calendar months. Third class medicals are required to exercise private pilot privileges. If you are 40 years or older, your third class medical is good for 24 calendar months. And if you're younger than 40, they're good for 60 calendar months. So remember, guys, when we talk about calendar months, that means it's good until the end of the month. So if you got your medical on the 1st of March, it's good until March 30th, whatever the last day of March is. Okay, in 12 months. It's not like specifically from March 1st to March 1st of the next year. The other thing to remember on these is that let's say you get a first class medical. For me, I'm under 40. I get my first class medical. For 12 calendar months, I can exercise first class medical privileges. After 12 calendar months, I am still allowed to exercise third class privileges to the end of 60 calendar months. Okay. So people say that your first class lapses into a third class. That's not technically true. You still have a first class medical, but you are now allowed only to exercise third class medical privileges until 60 calendar months from when you got that medical. The same thing is true. Let's say you're 40 or older. You get a first class. After 6 calendar months, you can exercise third class privileges for up to 24 calendar months. All right, moving on. 6156, guys. This regards flight reviews. So, in order to act as PIC, you must have completed a flight review in the past 24 calendar months. So, in the last 2 years, you need to get a flight review if you want to act as PIC. Now, flight reviews are done with, you can do a review with any CFI. What they consist of is they have to be, you don't need to know this part, but they have to be at least an hour of ground and at least an hour of flight. Um, and then the CFI can determine if they want to sign you off or not. Okay. Depending on, it's completely up there to their discretion. So depending on how rusty you are or how much you fly, the CFI can determine if they're comfortable with signing you off. Okay. Um, any check ride, guys, counts as a flight review. So if you take a check ride, that is going to reset your 24 calendar months that you get. Endorsements do not count though. So like if you get to go and get a tailwheel endorsement, that does not count. So flight reviews are one side of the currency coin. So in order to be current, you need to have had a flight review within the past 24 calendar months. Okay. The other side of the currency coin is the next slide that we're going to talk about here, which is just regarded as landing currency. So 6157. To act as pilot in command of an aircraft while carrying passengers. In the previous 90 days, you need 3 takeoffs and landings in the same category and class of aircraft that you intend to fly. If you want to act as pilot in command of an aircraft while carrying passengers at night, those 3 takeoffs and landings must be done at night and come to a full stop. The FAA defines night in 3 different ways. In this situation, when you are doing landings for currency, the FAA defines night as 1 hour after sunset and 1 hour before sunrise. So those 3 takeoffs and landings must be done at a full stop, and they must come 1 hour after sunset and 1 hour before sunrise if you want to carry passengers at night. The last thing on this is if uh, tailwheel landings, if you intend to fly a tailwheel, you must do those landings to a full stop. Okay. I want you to pay attention that to the in the same category and class of aircraft you intend to fly. So if you intend to fly single engine land, your landings in the past 90 days need to be done in a single engine land airplane. Okay. Now, when you guys get your private here, you're only going to be rated to fly single engine land airplane, right? But me, I have a multi-engine rating. So if in the past 90 days I've done 20 takeoffs and landings in a multi-engine land airplane, but I want to take up my friends in a single engine airplane, have to go and get current alone or with the CFI would be the smart thing to do. I need to go get current with the CFI or by myself in a single engine airplane and do 3 takeoffs and landings because that's same category and class before I can take my friends up. Okay. And that should make, that should make logical sense too. Because flying a multi-engine is not the same as flying a single engine. Or flying a seaplane is not the same as flying a single engine land airplane. Okay, night definitions. We'll go over the other two definitions of night. So if you're going to log nighttime, so if you want to log nighttime in your logbook, the FAA determines that you must wait until the end of civil twilight until the beginning of morning civil twilight. Okay. I don't know why they use this definition. You have to look up what the civil twilight is in your area. I just Google it. Okay. But for currency, like we just talked about, for the landings, you have to wait till 1 hour after sunset, 1 hour before sunrise is what that should say. Then the third definition of night, guys, when they talk about when you need to turn your strobe lights on or your nav lights on, is sunset to sunrise. Your strobe light nav lights need to be on from sunset to sunrise. If I start moving too fast, guys, somebody just say something. If you missed it at the beginning of this, I am recording this, so I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and I'll send the link to everybody so that if you want to go back through this stuff, you can. 6160, guys, change of address. So if your permanent mailing address changes, you must notify the FAA within 30 days. They like to ask this one on the test. This is an easy one. So if you change your mailing address, you have 30 days to let the FAA know. Don't worry about writing this one down, guys. You guys don't need to know this. This is your CFI's responsibility, but I like you to be aware. So 61-103 is your PPL, your private pilot eligibility requirements. So in order to get your private pilot's license, you need to be 17. You need to read, write, and understand English. You need to have a student pilot certificate. You need the correct logbook endorsements from your instructor. You need your logbook entries showing your required training has been done. You need to pass the knowledge exam and you need to pass the written exam, which are the same two things. This should say pass the knowledge and pass the practical. Okay, so those are your eligibility requirements. Your private pilot aeronautical experience requirements, so 61-109. So this is the specific amount of hours you need for each flight training condition. You need at least 40 hours of flight time, with at least 20 hours of that being flight instruction time from a CFI. You need 3 hours of CFI flight instruction time. I'm sorry, cross country flight instruction. You need 3 hours of night flight instruction. You need 3 hours of simulated instrument flight instruction, and you need 3 hours in the past 2 calendar months with a flight instructor. Then you need at least 10 hours of solo time with at least 5 hours of solo cross country. You need one solo cross country flight that is at least 150 nautical miles total distance, full stop landings at three different airports. One segment must be at least 50 nautical miles between takeoff and landing, and you need three full stop takeoff and landings at an airport with an operating control tower. Once again, you guys don't need to write this down. Don't try to memorize this. This is your CFI's responsibility. But when it starts coming to close for you to take the check ride, it's good for you to go and check and make sure you've met all these numbers. It is your CFI's responsibility, but it's better to have two sets of eyes checking those numbers than one. 61 113 is your private pilot privileges and limitations. Okay, guys, there's a lot of bullet points on here. I really want you just to focus on bullet point 1, 3, and this one here, but we'll talk about them. So first and foremost, you may not act as PIC of an aircraft carrying passengers or property for compensation or hire. So you are not allowed to get paid to fly airplanes, okay, with your private pilot license. Pretty straightforward, right? That one's pretty easy. But you're not allowed compensation either. So compensation can be viewed as not just money, but as free flight time. So if someone owns an airplane and they want you to fly it because you're taking people places, you're taking things places, you're not allowed to fly their airplane for free. They can't just not charge you to fly the airplane because that is seen as compensation, right? The second bullet point may act as PIC for compensation hire if incidental to the business and no passengers or property. Honestly, this one has always confused me. The best way to think of it is if I own my own airplane and my boss needs me to go up to Cleveland, and I decide I'm going to fly my airplane up to Cleveland, and at the same time I'm getting paid by my boss because I'm at work, I'm allowed to do that. Okay. Don't get yourself wrapped around in a bunch trying to interpret this. Okay. Just don't fly if someone's paying you. Um, the third bullet is what they like to ask. Okay. You may not pay less than the pro rata share of the operating expense of a flight, provided the expense involve only fuel, oil, airport expenditures, or rental fees. Okay. So the word pro rata share, that's what they like to ask about. Pro rata share. Pro rata share is when you add up all the expenses for the flight, and then you divide it evenly among the people that were involved in the flight. So if me and two of my friends go on a flight and it costs total $700 for the rent of the aircraft, um, then we split it three ways and we all pay our fair share. That's pro rata share. You are not allowed, if I went up with my friends and it was $900, it was me and two other people, I'm not allowed to pay less than $300. Like they both can't pay more and me pay less. I can pay more than the pro rata, but as the pilot, I cannot pay less. Okay, because that would technically still be compensation. The next bullet may be reimbursed for operating expenses directly related to search and location. So if you were volunteering for a search and rescue operation, you can be reimbursed for that. You are allowed to act as PIC for a charitable nonprofit or community event. You can be reimbursed for search and rescue. That's kind of a repeat of this one above it. Uh, if you were a aircraft salesman, you can demonstrate an aircraft to a potential buyer if you have over 200 hours and are an aircraft salesman, it says there. You may act as PIC of an aircraft towing a glider, 6169. So you can tow gliders as a PIC or as a private pilot. And then don't worry about the last bullet point. I want to talk to you guys about a certain situation that is not legal, also. So, um, the FAA likes to tell you that you need to have a common purpose in order to fly passengers. Okay. What that means is if me and my buddy want to go up to Cleveland and get barbecue, then we can, right? We have a common purpose. We're going to Cleveland to get food. Um, what they don't allow to happen is, let's say that word gets out that I'm a pilot at Delaware who's billed my hours, and I'll take anyone anywhere if they pay their pro rata share, right? So people are like, "Oh, I need to go to Dayton. I don't want to drive. I'll go to this guy, and he'll fly me there, and I only got to pay $100 because that's my pro rata share." That is not allowed. Okay, we don't have a common purpose. I'm not going to Dayton or Cleveland or whatever for any other reason than to take this person there. Okay. So even though they're paying the pro rata share, that is still considered compensation because I don't have a common purpose to go there. I'm getting a discount on my flight hours by taking this random person somewhere. Um, Basically, what the FAA sees this as is you are kind of acting as an operator now, right? You're taking people. The general public knows who you are and is coming to you to provide a service for them. You're not allowed to do that as a private pilot. Okay. All right. On to the next. So that's part 61, guys. Now let's talk about part 91. So part 91 is related to the general operating rules. So some of this is going to be review. Okay. 91.3, they like to ask about this one. I'd almost guarantee that they ask this on your written, uh, is regarding to pilot and command authority. So 91.3 says that the pilot and command has full authority to the final operation of the aircraft. You have the ability to deviate from any FAR to deal with an emergency. They do like to ask, when do you need to submit a report after you declare an emergency? You only need to submit a report to the FAA if they request one. Okay. So if you declare an emergency, you can deviate from any FAR, any regulation that you deem necessary to meet your needs during an emergency. 91.7, civil aircraft worthiness. So this says that the pilot in command determines if the aircraft is airworthy before the flight. You are not allowed to operate any aircraft that is not airworthy. So what this entails is you need to do a nice thorough pre-flight, make sure the aircraft is in condition, but also you need to check the documents for the aircraft. You need to check and make sure the inspections are up to date. Okay, if one of the inspections is not up to date and that's necessary for the aircraft to be airworthy, you cannot fly that aircraft. You're not going to get off the hook if the FAA comes and says you flew an unairworthy aircraft and you say, "Well, I didn't know that it wasn't airworthy." That doesn't matter. It's still your fault. Okay? So The question that they like to ask on the written is going to be who is responsible for determining that the aircraft is airworthy. The answer is the PIC. It's the PIC. It's not the owner. It's not the A&P. It's the PIC. 9115. This is always a fun one. I don't know why they teach this one, but they do ask you about it. Dropping objects. You are allowed to drop things from the aircraft if you take proper precautions to ensure there is no hazard to persons or property. So you're allowed to drop stuff as long as you do the due diligence of making sure that you're not going to cause any damage. 9117. So they'll ask you about this. I guarantee it. You cannot operate an aircraft if you are under the influence of alcohol or any other drugs. So this includes a hangover. So they consider being hungover to be under the influence. So that's technically breaking the regulation. Um, the rule is 8 hours bottle to throttle. So from the time you had your last drink, you need to have at least 8 hours of separation until you um, drink again. Or I'm sorry, not drink again. Sorry, until you fly. You need 8 hours bottle to throttle at the minimum. Okay. And then the blood alcohol level is zero point zero 0.04. So driving is 0.08, flying is 0.04. This, I guarantee that you will get this question on your written. At least it'll either be the 8 hours bottle to throttle or zero point zero 0.04 BAC, one or the other. Okay, pre-flight action. We've covered this one. This will be the third time we've talked about this. But 91-103. So this is what you're required to do before any flight that leaves the vicinity of the airport. You need to get the NOTAMs. You need to get a weather briefing. You need to be aware of known ATC delays. You need to know the runway lengths of the airports that you intend to use. You need to be knowledgeable of the alternates available. You need to calculate your fuel burn, and you need to calculate your takeoffs and landing distances. So remember the acronym for this is NW Craft, NW Craft. So the word vicinity here in the regulation is defined as 25 nautical miles around the airport. So most of the time when you're doing training flights, we're not leaving 25 nautical mile like radius of the airport, right? So you don't need to do this before training flight, but if you're going to go on any cross country, basically every cross country, you need to do this. You need to do these six things. 91-105, flight crew at station. So when you are acting as a crew member, you must remain at your station with your seatbelt fastened unless you're using the restroom or performing duties necessary to the flight. As a crew member, you must wear your shoulder harness for takeoff and landing. So takeoff and landing, you got to keep your shoulder harness on. Um, and you got to stay in your seat unless you are going to the bathroom or performing some sort of duty necessary to the flight. I would always recommend to keep your shoulder harness on uh, during cruise too. You never know when you're going to hit some turbulence or something. 91-107 talks about seatbelts. So all passengers must be briefed on the uses of seatbelts before takeoff. Seatbelts by your passengers must be worn for taxi, takeoff, and landing. Okay. Then I put in the acronym that we use for a pre-takeoff, or I'm sorry, yeah, a pre-flight brief for your passengers. So the acronym is safety. So before you fly with passengers, you want to give them the safety briefing to let them be aware of a few things regarding the flight. So you're going to talk to them about their seatbelts, when they need to wear them and how to use them. You'll tell them about the air vents. So here's where your air vents are and here's how you use them. You'll tell them about the fire extinguisher, where the fire extinguisher is, and how to use the fire extinguisher. You'll tell them about the exits, so how to open and close their doors. And you also tell them if we need to get out of the airplane, we're going to get out and meet at the back, right? You don't want to meet near the propeller. Um, then you'll tell them that if they see traffic, to alert you. And I forgot to put this in. T is supposed to be traffic slash talking. So you'll talk to them about sterile cockpit, which is the idea that during any critical phase of flight, um, you're not talking about anything that is not related to the flight. So takeoff, landing, and approach, and taxi. You're not talking about things unrelated to the flight. Okay, no meaningless conversation. Y stands for your questions. So then, if they have any questions for you, now's the time to ask. 91-111. So operating near other aircraft. In order to fly in formation, you must have prior agreement and plan with all participating aircraft. And you're not allowed to fly in formation with passengers or when operating for hire. Okay, so you are allowed to fly in formation, but you have to have talked and planned it out before the flight. Okay, 91-113. We've gone over this. We're going to go over it again. This is the right of way rules. Okay. So an aircraft in distress has priority over all. So an aircraft that has declared emergency has the right of way over everyone else. When you have converging aircraft, so two aircraft are converging on a single point, you give way to the aircraft on the right. So whatever aircraft is on the right has the right of way. The other aircraft should turn away to avoid that aircraft. The less maneuverable craft always has the right of way. So if two airplanes are converging, they're both equally maneuverable. Okay, so the one on the right has the right of way. But if an airplane is converging with a balloon, the balloon has the right of way. If an airplane is converging with a glider, the glider has the right of way. Helicopters, in this case, are considered to have the same maneuverability as an airplane. So if an airplane and a helicopter are converging, whichever one is on the right has the right of way. If two aircraft are approaching head on, both aircraft are going to turn to the right. Okay. So if two people are approaching head on, you both turn to the right. That way you can keep each other in sight. Okay. Because usually the pilot who's flying the aircraft is sitting in the left seat, right? So if you turn to the right, you can still see the person that you're avoiding. If you're going to overtake an aircraft, you will overtake them on the right. Once again, that way you can keep them in your sight if you're sitting in the left seat. And then landing, the lower aircraft has the right of way, but you cannot take advantage of this rule in order to land before them. So they like to ask this question. You can't just go ahead and drop down below the person that's on their way in order to have the right of way. Okay, moving on. Speed limits 91-117. So below 10,000 feet, there's a 250 knot speed limit. Can't go faster than 250 knots. If you are within 4 nautical miles of Class Charlie or Delta from the surface to 2,500 feet, you're limited to 200 knots. If you're under a Class Bravo within a VFR corridor, you're limited to 200 knots. Then if you're above 10,000, the speed of sound is your speed limit. Um, they do ask about this one occasionally. Um, sometimes they'll ask about the second speed limit there. Okay, 91,119. We have talked about this one before. We're going to go over it again. So this is your minimum safe altitudes. So you must maintain an altitude in which an engine failure will not cause undue harm to persons or property, right? That's the caveat. At all times, when possible, you have to maintain an altitude in which an engine failure will not cause undue harm. If you are over a congested area, you need to be 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within 2,000 feet. Okay, they do not define these, so they don't define congested or other than congested, really. So it's kind of up to you to determine uh, these. If you're in an other than congested area, you have to be 500 feet above the surface. And then if you're over open water or a sparsely populated, so if you're out in the desert, you have to be 500 feet away from any structure, person, or vehicle. So, like if you're right over the water, uh, the open water, you can be right above the ground if you want to be. Okay, moving on. Guys, take a picture of this one. They do like to ask about this. Okay. So these are the light gun signals. What these are for is if you are going into a towered airport and your radio is not working, you can't transmit or receive, you're going to squawk 7600 and you're going to look for a light gun signal from ATC. Okay, from the tower. You'll physically look at the air traffic control tower and they'll get out their light gun and give you signals to tell you what to do. So if you're in the air and you get a steady green light, you are clear to land. Okay, go ahead and proceed to land. If you get a flashing green light, you're supposed to return for landing. If you get a steady red, you're going to give way to the other aircraft and continue circling. If you get a flashing red, the airport is unsafe, do not land, like the runway's closed or something. If you get alternating red and green, they want you to exercise extreme caution. So that's if you're in the air. If you're on the ground, you get a steady green, you're cleared for takeoff. If you get a flashing green, you're cleared to taxi. If you get a steady red, you're supposed to stop. If you get a flashing red, taxi clear of the runway. And if you get a flashing white, return to the starting point on the airport. Okay, these are really bright. You can see them pretty easily during the day too. So it's not just for nighttime. So if your radio is not working, you can't transmit or you can't hear the tower, you're going to look for light gun signals. 91 151. So this is fuel requirements. Your fuel reserve for the day. So your VFR fuel reserve for the day is going to be 30 minutes worth of gas. What this means is you need to take off with enough fuel to fly to your destination and then fly for an extra 30 minutes. Okay. At night, the required amount of gas for takeoff is 45 extra minutes worth of gas. So if you are doing a VFR night flight, when you take off, you need to have at least enough gas for you to fly to your destination and then fly for 45 more minutes. Um, it's not a good idea to be right at the bare minimum of these fuel requirements. I would not do a night flight with only 45 extra minutes worth of gas. I wouldn't do a day flight with only 30 minutes extra worth of gas. Um, but this is just bare minimum what you need to be legal. So this is why we calculate our fuel burn on the cross country planning, right? That allows us to know how much extra gas we have. VFR Weathermans. So we've talked about this, guys. Let's go over it real quick. 91, 155. So your VFR weather minimums. Class Bravo, 3 statute miles, clear clouds. Class Charlie is 3 statute miles, 1,000 above, 500 below, or 2,000 horizontally. Delta is the same, right? 3,152. Echo, below 10,000 feet, is the same, 3,152. Above 10,000 feet, it goes to 5 statute miles, 1,000 above, 1,000 below, and or 1 mile horizontally. Remember, once you get above 10, things are moving much quicker. That's why they want you to be further away from the clouds. Then we have golf, which is broken into three separate distinctions. During the day, in golf, when you're above 1,200 feet, it's 1 statute mile, 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 horizontally. If you're in golf during the day, below 1,200, it's 1 statute mile and clear of clouds. And then if you're in golf during the night, it is just flat out 3 statute miles, 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 horizontally. Okay, 91,157. So we did talk about this, I think, 2 classes ago. Special VFR, guys. So uh, if you request a special VFR clearance, you're required to maintain clear of clouds. Uh, and you need at least 1 statute mile visibility. Um, if you're going to try and get a special VFR at night, or if you are going to do special VFR at night, you need to have an instrument rating, and the aircraft needs to be equipped for instrument flight. Remember, what the special VFR is it allows you to operate from a controlled field when uh, the weather conditions are less than VFR. Okay. Um, this is pretty much never a good idea. I would not recommend anybody doing this ever. And a lot of towered airports just straight up ban special VFR, but it has some applications. Okay. 91,159 VFR cruising altitude. So we talked about this. So if your magnetic track for your cross country is above 3,000 AGL, you are going to, and you're above 3,000 AGL. Uh, if it is between 0 and 179, you'll fly at VFR odds plus 1,000. I'm sorry, odd 1,000s plus 500. So 35, 55, 75, 95. If it is from 180 to 359, you're going to fly even thousands plus 500. So 45, 65, 85. Remember, we do that because we don't want two aircraft running into each other, right? One going the opposite way of the other, and they're flying at the same altitude. And we do the um, 500s when you're VFR because IFR traffic flies right on the thousands. 91,203. So earlier we talked about your required documents for yourself when you go fly. These are what's required for the aircraft. Okay. And the acronym here you can see is AROW, AROW. The aircraft needs to have its airworthiness certificate on it, needs to have its registration certificate, so just like your car, needs to have an operator's manual in it, and it needs to have the weight and balance in it. Okay, so it needs to have the weight and balance paperwork in it when you go fly. Those are the things that the airplane needs to have for it to be legal to fly. So Aero, AROW. Okay, don't worry about writing this one down, guys. Remember we went over this, I think this was the second day of class. But 91,205, okay, 91,205, you're going to want to know. You're going to want to know that number for your required equipment. Remember, this is the required equipment for you to fly VFR, and we have it split up into VFR day and VFR night. So A tomato flames is your acronym for required equipment for during the day, and flaps is your required equipment for night. So this is one of the ones where you might get asked by the DPE and you don't have it completely memorized. So you look it up in your FAR aim. So have this one tabbed, guys. But also do your best to try to remember, try to memorize these. Write it down 4 or 5 times a day for a week, and you'll have it down. 91,207. So ELT requirements. So ELT, guys, stands for Emergency Locator Transmitter. Every airplane must have an operating ELT. They must be inspected every 12 calendar months. And then, if it has been used for over 1 cumulative hour or more than half its useful battery life, it must be replaced. Um, so, when it goes in for an inspection, the A&P turns it on and they log how long it's on for. If that time adds up to over an hour, you have to replace it. Okay. ELT testing takes place in the first 5 minutes of every hour. Sometimes they ask that question. So ATC, if they hear an ELT on 121.5, which is the radio frequency that they transmit on, if they hear that in the first 5 hours, they're not going to do anything about, or, sorry, 5 minutes of the hour, they're not going to do anything about it. Once it gets past that, they'll start making calls and arranging search and rescue. How the ELT works, guys, is if it senses a deceleration that exceeds its limits, it'll start broadcasting on 121.5, and it helps locate you. It sounds like kind of like I don't know, an alarm clock sort of sound, a siren on 121.5. 91,209 aircraft lights. You must use anti-collision lights if installed, and during the night you must have operational position lights. So your position lights are your red and green lights on the tips, on the wing tips. 91,211 supplemental oxygen. So after 30 minutes, once you're above 12,500 for more than 30 minutes, you need supplemental oxygen. Okay, so you can be above 12.5 for 25 minutes and then go back below 12.5 and not need supplemental oxygen. But after 30 minutes above 12.5, you need supplemental oxygen. After 14,000 feet, you need oxygen immediately. So once you get to 14,000 feet, you need to be on supplemental oxygen immediately. After 15,000 feet, you must offer passengers oxygen. They don't have to take it, but you have to have supplemental oxygen for them. Okay. So in 172s and the Archer, the Arrow that we have, you're really not gonna. I mean, you can go above 12.5, but it usually is a waste of time. But if you have like a 182 or a Bonanza or something, it makes sense to go up above 12.5 sometimes. So in that case, you're going to need to get supplemental oxygen. You have a few options. You can get like a cannula. There's a few things. I've actually never done it in a general aviation airplane, but honestly, Sporties might have some on here. Let's see. Aircraft supplies, maybe. Signs, cleaning, portable air conditioners. Probably not, but I'll show you what it looks like. Something like that. That's cannula. Um, that's usually what you see because that's the easiest thing to get in a general aviation aircraft. That's like what we have in the Phenom. That's really uncomfortable when we have to wear it. But yeah, here we go. Pressure demand, diluter demand, rebreather, and a cannula. Those are the different ones you can have. Cannula is usually what you see. Rebreather for even higher altitudes. 91405, guys, maintenance required. So inoperative equipment must be disabled and marked inoperative if not removed. Then the discrepancy must be logged in the maintenance records. So if something's not working, you must disable it. So usually that's as simple as pulling the circuit breaker on it. So now it won't work. And you need to mark it as inop. Usually you just take a piece of tape or paper and put it over the instrument and write inop on it. Okay. The reason for that is, let's say you're flying something and one of the instruments is inoperative, but you don't know that, but it's giving you bad information. Okay, you don't want to be operating off of bad information. So if something is inoperative or not working correctly, we need to disable it and mark it as so. Required inspections, guys. So this is another acronym that you need to know. It's Aviate. So it's AV1. This is a one right here. ATE. Aviate. So you are required to get an annual once every 12 calendar months. So every 12 calendar months, the aircraft must get an annual. The V stands for VOR. VOR, this must be done every 30 days if you intend to use the VOR equipment for navigation. So you don't have to do this unless you're going to use the VOR equipment for navigation as your primary source of navigation. The 100 hour, you need to get a 100-hour inspection every 100 hours of tack time, and it can be overflown by 10 hours. Okay. The only reason you are allowed to overfly the 100 hour is if you are moving the airplane so that it can get its maintenance done. So you can't just overfly the 100 hour by 10 hours just because you want to. It's only if my airplane, let's say I get my 100 hour done in Cincinnati and we're in Columbus, I'm allowed to fly the airplane uh, over its 100 hour by 10 hours to get it down to Cincinnati. But that's it. Okay. 100 hours only needed if you are operating the aircraft for hire. Okay. So flight instruction counts. So all the airplanes at Spencer get 100 hours. The last thing about the 100 hour is uh, if you overfly the 100 hour, you don't get that time back. So the next 100 hour is still due 100 hours from when it was originally due. So if my 100 hour was due at 205 hours and I have to fly it until 210 hours to get it to its maintenance, the next 100 hour is still due at 305 hours. You don't get those 5 hours back. The A stands for altimeter and pitot-static, and you need to get that checked every 24 calendar months. Your transponder is checked every 24 calendar months, And then your ELT, like we talked on the last slide, is checked every 12 calendar months. So AV8, guys, AV1 ATE. Don't worry about writing this down, guys. Just listen to me for a second. So NTSB immediate 8:30 immediate notification. So the NTSB is the government organization that investigates plane crashes, train crashes, boat accidents. So 8:30 is its own document, but this is when you must notify the NTSB immediately. So if you have a flight control system malfunction or failure, if you have the inability of a flight crew member to perform their duties as a result of injury or sickness, if you have a failure of an internal engine component, if you have a fire, if you have a collision, if you have damage to property estimated to exceed $25,000, if you release of a prop blade from an aircraft caused solely by ground contact, and if you lose more than 50% of your aircraft screens. Okay, so if any of those things happen, you need to notify the NTSB immediately. The next one, the only other thing from the NTSB, 83010, preservation of wreckage. Wreckage must not be disturbed except for protection of injured individuals or to protect wreckage from further damage. So if you're on the scene of an accident, um, you are not supposed to disturb the wreckage unless you are trying to help somebody or trying to protect uh, the wreckage from further damage. Reason for this is uh, the wreckage from an aircraft accident, from any accident, is actually very helpful in determining what caused the accident. So they don't want you to mess with it unless it's necessary. All right, guys, we have 8 more slides. So we're going to finish this off with aeromedical factors. Okay. So hypoxia. They love to ask about hypoxia. Hypoxia is reduced oxygen in the brain or in the body, and there's 4 types. So hypoxic hypoxia is insufficient oxygen available to the body. So this is some examples of this is a blocked airway, drowning. Okay. So if you're choking, you can't get air into your body. That's hypoxic hypoxia. Um, this is also hypoxia due to altitude, lack of particle pressure at altitude. So there's not enough pressure to force the air into your lungs way up at 40,000 feet, so you get hypoxic. So hypoxic hypoxia uh, is caused by not getting enough oxygen into your body. Histotoxic hypoxia, okay, is hypoxia induced due to drugs or alcohol. So certain drugs and alcohol can reduce your tissue's ability to use oxygen. Okay, and that can cause hypoxia. So histotoxic is due to drugs or alcohol. Hypemic uh, hypoxia. This is when your blood is not able to take up or transport oxygen. So this can be due to reduced blood volume, so like bleeding out, or situations affecting the blood cell's ability to carry oxygen, carbon monoxide poisoning, sickle cell anemia. So the one that we're really worried about is going to be carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So when you get carbon monoxide poisoning, the carbon monoxide binds to the same part of the blood cell that oxygen does, so it keeps your blood cells from being able to carry the oxygen. So you would be hypemic hypoxia. Stagnant hypoxia. So this is caused by blood's inability to move. So if your blood can't move around your body, you will end up being uh, hypoxic. So our most common one in aviation is going to be pulling G's. So when you pass out due to G force, that's stagnant hypoxia. Other things like your legs falling asleep from being still for too long, or your toes, fingers, whatever, being numb due to the cold is stagnant hypoxia. Hypoxic symptoms, guys, are going to be confusion, headache, blue lips, euphoria, slowed reaction time, numbness, loss of consciousness, and finally death. Okay. So hypoxia is very sinister. Like it can come on and you won't know that it's happening. If you do suspect hypoxia, you should send or use supplemental oxygen. Okay. Hyperventilation, guys. So hyperventilation is the other thing that they like to ask you questions about. This is an excessive rate of respiration leading to abnormal loss of carbon dioxide in your blood, and it messes with your blood's pH levels. So this is when you're have a reaction to stress where you're breathing rapidly. You exhale too much carbon dioxide actually, and your pH levels in your blood get off. The treatment or what you're supposed to do is try to get them to slow their breathing. You want to make them breathe into a bag or talk slowly or talk or sing. Okay, those things are what they tell you to try to stop hyperventilation. Spatial disorientation. So, this is a lack of orientation with regard to the position, attitude, or movement of the airplane in space. So, this is caused due to a lack of agreement between your eyes and your vestibular system. Um, the antidote to this, or how you're supposed to manage this, is to trust your instruments. What I'll tell you is less control, manipulation is more. So if you start to get spatially disoriented, uh, it's almost a good idea to stop manipulating the controls. Okay. The airplane generally wants to fly upright and level. So trust your instruments and stop yanking on the controls. Okay. So when people fly into the clouds, and they put themselves in an unusual attitude, it's because of spatial disorientation. Your body is not good at determining your position and attitude um, without being able to see. Okay. That is it for today, guys. Does anybody have any questions right now? Next week, guys, we are going to take the practice exam. Okay, how that works is you'll come in, I'll give you the practice exam. When you finish, you'll come out, you'll give it to me, I'll grade it. You need to get at least an 80%. If you get an 80%, I will give you my endorsement, and then you can go and take the written. If you don't get an 80%, we'll figure something out. Usually, you can work with your CFI until they want to give you their endorsement, or I'll have you take practice quizzes on the Sporty app until you get 390s or something. And then I'll give you the endorsement. Last session, we only had one person not get an 80 on the written, and they got a 78, so they just missed one more question. So I'm fairly certain most of you guys are probably all of you guys are gonna pass. Just keep um, going over the questions on the Sporties app, and let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me a text if you see something that you don't understand and need it explained. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. I will see you guys next week. Text me if anybody needs anything.
All right, Max. Thank you, buddy.
No problem.
Thanks, Max.